And then I'm like, oh God, I should remember this. So like half the time my sort of WhatsApp conversation between my personal phone and my work phone is just TikToks. I'm just like, and I'll come back and like when I'm, in the environment to work again, I'll be like, oh, what was that? Oh yeah, that was that TikTok. Okay, let's look at that. Or, that was that trend, that was that video or something. Let's look to recreate that.
Hey guys, thanks so much for your support and for being here. We take a lot of pride in the work that we are doing and making sure that we are producing the best quality content for you all. We are doing intense amount of research, flying to where our guests are and asking questions that you might want to hear about. We know there are a lot of you out here that are watching and not subscribed. So I just want to make sure that you can go ahead, check and see if you're subscribed. And if you're not, smash that button and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, welcome to the Track Limits podcast. I'm your host, Swish. I am joined by my co-hosts, Henny and Fevin. And today we have an incredible episode. Welcome, Alex Thomson.
Woo!
Let's go.
Thanks for having me, guys.
How are you doing?
Doing really good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, doing great. This is probably one of the first in-person podcasts that we've done.
Yeah.
And candidly, it's a bit weird. It's coming back from COVID and virtual podcast. But how are you feeling about it?
No, really good. I mean, I think I've only done maybe one in-person podcast even before COVID. And obviously, done a few virtual ones during COVID. So this is my first time kind of like back at it. I'm used to sort of being on the other side of things. But yeah, it's
all right. It's
cool.
going to be energetic.
All ease into it.
Yeah, just smooth, like therapy session.
Yes.
Yeah. So over the next kind of 45 minutes, we're going to go through 3 sections. And that's the way our podcast is broken up. Q1, Q2, Q3. And Q1, we're going to go through racing related questions. Q2, more kind of diving into you as a professional, how you've conducted your career, best practices for people that might be wanting to get into this industry. And then finally, Q3, I think our favorite section probably.
It's going to be fun.
The rapid fire round, where we're going to get rapid answers, full of fire, hopefully. So
without put you on the spot.
Yeah, literally.
And you might get some whiplash.
Yeah, a little bit.
Back and forth.
But without further ado, are you ready to get into Q1?
I'm so ready.
Perfect. So the first question we ask every guest is summarize your career for us in 30 seconds. And we actually do have a stopwatch here, so we can time.
Oh, wow. So precise.
Yeah. But tell us a bit about yourself. Generally, what are the things you're the most proud of up till this point?
On the spot. Great start.
Great start.
No, I guess, my career in 30 seconds is I work in social media and content in Formula One. I've done a little bit else in other areas of motorsport, but yeah, I've worked with teams and with brands and organizations since sort of the start of my career. I think a couple of things that I'm maybe most proud of is there's a couple of sort of firsts that I've had along the way. So back in the first year of my career, I was part of the team that launched the first ever F1 Snapchat story, which
that's cool.
Now in 2023, it's just only kids use Snapchat. But back then as well, this is still the Bernie Ecclestone days. This is before Liberty came over and really embraced social media in Formula One. So I was part of that. I was the first person to press play on a live broadcast during Formula One, also on a Facebook Live. So
what was that moment like?
Yeah.
Just doing it.
It was just please make the connection work. But no, it was really cool. We had Maurice Hamilton, who's a fantastic journalist in Formula One, written a load of books, gone to sort of every race. But he would host these sort of end of day wrap up videos that we had. And I can't remember who was interviewing as the first one. It might have been Khalil Bashir, who's also an Arabic presenter. And we had 90 seconds to do. That was the maximum we could record live for. And that was the first ever live broadcast. And I was we're doing cool things.
Yeah.
But that's
Very
more than 30
innovative.
seconds.
No, that's
But,
incredible.
yeah,
Incredible. And I think what's cool is throughout your career, and then you've really seen the transition and transformation of the sport digitally. And, when it came to your day-to-day life then, what did that look like kind of at the beginning of your career to when you kind of continue to find that, oh my God, there is advancements being made in the sport? Did things rapidly change in terms of that day-to-day responsibility for you as a social media manager?
I'm not sure if maybe it was rapid, but maybe because I was in it on the day-to-day, it kind of felt a bit more transitional. But I remember when I was first trying to sort of break my way into the sport, social media or a social media manager, that wasn't a position. It was part of what sort of the traditional comms person would do. It was just one of their kind of other things, as well as doing the press release and writing the web story. They would also have to look after the team's Twitter account. and then maybe they would have an Instagram as well. And yeah, like to begin with, it was just, I guess my day to day was a little bit more varied. My first sort of proper job, like, you know, not an internship, like my first job had a sales aspect to it as well, because I was working for the agency that looked after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So obviously, like, we were looking after ticket sales. So there was like an aspect of, okay, well, you know, we still have a social media presence of, you know, creating this personality around a circuit essentially, but we also want people to buy tickets to the Grand Prix. So we need to create like a digital campaign that's going to encourage people to buy tickets to the Grand Prix. That was, I guess, like, it's not, in fairness, it's not changed a huge amount. Like, I still have to make sure that any brand that I'm working with has like an authentic sort of brand voice and brand personality. But it will depend on, I mean, I haven't really had to work much in sort of conversion since I was at the Grand Prix. But since then, you know, I've been working a lot more with brands. So it's making sure that sort of like brand rights are, I guess, like adhered to, or, you know, we're getting the right message across. It's, I'm not sure if I've actually really answered the question.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And I mean, I would imagine for you as well, like coming into this career, like, did you know a lot generally about social media management and, you know, all of that? Or did you kind of come in like and then learn on the job?
I mean, it was a mixture of two. Like there's always something more to learn. And there were different things that, of course, like I'm going to learn on the job. But I definitely came into it saying, this is something that I think I'm already good at. What I had, again, like, when I was at uni, social media wasn't a thing that you can study. I remember in my textbooks, social media was actually referred to as new media, which might be sort of showing my age a little bit. But I mean, it was around that time that I sort of, like I said, I knew it was something that I thought I was good at. So it was around that time that I launched my blog, Ala Booth, and sort of did everything that I wanted to do around Formula One and social media. Basically, anything that I wanted to be professional, I would put under the Ala Booth brand, because in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm tagging everything as Ala Booth, someone can just search that. And it's a made up word, so nothing else is going to come up unless it's something that I want them to see.
Genius.
So, so I was just like,
she was thinking ahead.
I was like, this is the social media bit. So, like, it was something that, like I said, I thought I was good at. I enjoyed it. And it was something as well that I really felt like every brand should get behind. But I thought it was so interesting from a sporting perspective that I was like, people engage so differently with like a team or a driver or, you know, any other sport, like a player or something. And it was just something I wanted to be involved in and learn on the spot.
Quick follow-up to that. Obviously, you're creating content in a male-dominant, you know, audience and sport in general. So like, what was the vibe or approach when, you know, for specific brands? Yeah,
I mean, one thing that I guess I will try and do is I guess in general, like, we try and make our content kind of genderless. Like, it should appeal to everybody. So, you know, we'll still have a target audience of, we want this to appeal to a certain age group, or, you know, we want this to appeal to a certain type of fan. You know, maybe it's a new fan coming into the sport. So we're going to, you know, be a little bit more educational, a little bit more approachable with something, or, you know, this is for the diehard fan, or this is for this one specific like group on TikTok who've seen this like this trend and they're going to absolutely love it. So like from that perspective, like we try and, you know, we don't think about sort of gender in that regard when creating content.
And then, or maybe on the age groups, like obviously there's becoming, the sport has just blown up in the younger audience. Have the strategies shifted?
Oh, definitely.
Over the last 2 years even?
Yeah. I mean, even from a really basic perspective, like our like paid media strategy, when we are promoting posts, we've moved it from sort of, you know, 25-year-old plus to 18 to 24, because we're like, well, you know, we want to be attracting a younger audience. So like we should actually be, you know, when we are putting money behind it, make sure that it is pushed towards the right audience. But one thing that, you know, I mean, it makes sense, but one thing that like when you actually see it in action, you're like, yeah, this really does make sense, is different content will work on different channels. Sounds so obvious, but, you know, we'll occasionally take a trend that we've seen on TikTok, put it into an Instagram reel and it tanks, and you're like, oh, but
It's like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, but you're like, it's so good. But it's a different, different audience,
reach.
different, demographic in that channel. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind when you're creating.
And when you're creating, you probably also have to consume a lot, right? To even know those trends.
What's trending?
Yeah. Which on like sometimes it's great. And I'm just like, I'm scrolling through TikTok in bed. I'm like, I'm working. I'm doing research.
It's 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm still working.
On the flip side, sometimes it does feel like you can never switch off because you're like, oh, I've seen that really good trend, but I'm like looking at it from my personal phone. And then I'm like, oh God, I should remember this. So like half the time my sort of WhatsApp conversation between my personal phone and my work phone is just TikToks. Just like, and I'll come back and like when I'm, in the environment to work again, I'll be like, oh, what was that? Oh yeah, that was that TikTok. Okay, let's look at that. Or, that was that trend, that was that video or something. Let's look to recreate that when we can.
And that's cool because, our favorite show is Drive to Survive, of course, for many new fans here. How did that change the way you guys did your social media? Because, you have Netflix, who's also trying to control what's happening in race weekends and everything with their content. Was there a way you guys collaborated when it comes to teams and brands? Like, how did that work?
So when I'm trying to remember where I was working for in the first season of Drive to Survive, but it doesn't really change like what we do and how we do, because obviously the way that they approach is sort of very sort of fly on the wall. Thankfully, like I mean, the team that gets sort of involved in, organizing everything is there's so many people behind the scenes to organize that. And it's not really something that I have to sort of get too involved in. Obviously from like a promotional perspective, like we'll align with Formula One because they'll provide assets for us that we can say, okay, well, the new season's coming out and here's some, clips that feature you more predominantly. So you've got the rights to publish those, etc. But then when they're actually in the garage and filming or just like around the paddock, a lot of the time you don't, I mean, you know them, but a lot of the time it's just kind of like another colleague that you work with.
Yeah.
I remember in the 2020 year, I was working with the like virtual paddock club. So we had sort of a live studio, not too dissimilar to this. And we would share studio space with Netflix. So when we would do our show, they were out of the room. But then when they needed to bring, the drivers or team principals in to do their part of like, the cutaway, the interview.
Yes, the 101.
Yeah. So we kind of had this like makeshift studio that we were sharing. But yeah, it's just like anything else. One thing that was the strangest to begin with is whenever you were having sort of like a private conversation, instinctively you would kind of, normally you would look to your left and look to your right, make sure there's no one around. And then when Netflix first came in, you would do that and then also look up and just check if there's a boom mic over you.
Is there a drone?
Yeah.
No, that's amazing because that also leads to, was there any like collaborations with other teams when it comes to, creating content, and do you even, is there even rivalries between teams when it comes to content?
Like drivers,
teams? Much similar to what drivers go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a friendly rivalry because I mean, it's we're all colleagues. We all work in the same sport and part of this like same kind of like traveling circus, and everybody. It's actually a really positive place to work a lot of the time because everyone will have someone's back or something difficult happens. Even just really small things like, does anybody have a GoPro chest mount? And then the team down the road will be like, I've got one, just borrow it.
That's
so like you do collaborate in that, that regard. Like, you look out for each other, just, as you would hope.
Of course.
But from like a more sort of professional perspective, like we'll, collaborate or coordinate on a particular announcement if, like if we're releasing a driver and they're going to another team, you just make sure that everyone's aligned on messaging and like what time we're going to publish and we're going to do that and we're going to do etc.
And do you guys take like trends from other teams? Like imagine you saw somebody else post and you're like, oh, that's a really cool video, like we should do something like that. Is that something that ever comes up?
Yes and no. Like more often than not it'll come up and been like, oh, we want to do this, let's do that for then. And then you see another team do it.
Darn it.
Delete.
Yeah, it's like abort mission.
Reschedule.
So like that's the most annoying thing when you're like, oh, damn it. And then, on the flip side, we'll occasionally like post a trend, and then I'll see someone do it maybe like a week or 2 weeks later, and I'm like, we
Oh,
did it first.
we beat you to it.
Yeah. But I mean, we try to, I think this is the same for, every team up and down the grid, but you try and have your own sort of original ideas.
Of course.
But, it's social and it's content, and everything is sort of trend based. So very, very rarely are you going to be able to do something that nobody else in the sport has done.
Yep.
So a lot of the time, if we want to get inspiration for something, like we'll look to, I mean, you'll get just general trends, but if we want to be looking at like something best practice or something that someone else hasn't really done before, like we'll look into other sports or into, like for I remember doing this when I was still working for Yas Marina Circuit, because we would have artist announcements for the after race concerts. So I would look at how festival lineups would announce their artists.
Yeah. Coachella or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I tend to look back at like the ones in Australia.
Fair enough.
I mean,
Hometown.
So because I mean, I didn't want it to be something that people would just say, oh, well, you've just ripped off what Coachella have done.
Yeah.
So I would, try and look at like loads of different things, or, there was always, a different creative aspect or a different creative avenue to look through.
And this might be a bit difficult, but like how much of Australia and your background there did influence kind of your approach to content then? Like, were you taking a lot of your inspiration then from things that you were growing up with and consuming there?
I don't really know, because maybe not.
Maybe
like,
not.
I moved from Australia the first time when I was 9.
Okay.
I feel like it's maybe a bit more from everywhere, maybe, or like where I am at the time, or just whatever trend I've seen.
No, another question that relates to collaboration with teams is, when you are during the off season, there's opportunities to work on the next year's calendar and what's going to be. But when we talk about driver lineups and car reveals, what's that pressure like? Because it is a crunch time. They tell you a date and you're like, okay, we got to create this whole strategy and we got to launch. And it has to be big. Like, how does that go about?
So, I mean, it's a weird one, because I mean, I've done more car launches on the other side of things, from like either from sort of a publication side or an organization side. And I think, I mean, both sides of it, or like any kind of announcement, has like inherent stress around it. But I think being on that side of it is a bit more stressful, because you have to be across all 10 announcements. And, a teaser might drop a bit earlier than another one. And you're like, oh crap, I need to repost
like
this.
Management.
Or just like, you just have to always be on, as the nature of social media. But from a team perspective, it's something that you start working on quite early in the season. You get the date first, and then your hygiene content of like, okay, well, we'll announce the date. So how can we announce the date in a creative way? We'll have countdowns tend to do well. So should we do a countdown, or how do we go about sort of counting down to the event? How are we going to promote it? Is it going to be a live stream? Where is it going to be hosted? What partner collaborations can we do? Obviously, one of the first steps as well is making sure that all the partners are aware of the date.
Surprise.
By the way, new car. And, there's a whole sort of other aspect of like, making sure that, again, like all the partner logos are where they should be. And then from the event perspective, who speaks at the event, and how do we cover that across, social and content? What kind of content needs to be filmed beforehand, because obviously we need something to go live on the day, but it's then and there. So for last year's launch, I remember we flew out to Paul Ricard maybe a week or so before our actual launch, and filmed our interviews and did our kind of like basic collateral photo shoots of the drivers in the current suit for the first time, and just the bare minimum just to get all the graphics together for the launch.
Creates a base layer.
Exactly. And then there's always things that you have to redo afterwards, because the suits inherently change a little bit, and then we have the entire rest of like the the season collateral to do. But it's a really fun approach, actually. I did like team side is obviously, like I said, it's still inherently stressful, but just being able to focus on sort of like one aspect is,
I mean, the funniest one, off topic, but if you guys have seen the McLaren one, It was just Lando just
Oh yeah,
just on his iPhone, just saying, "So when are we launching?" I don't know, maybe February 13th. Like it was so authentic and organic that like it probably went viral and did well for them.
Yeah.
So it's cool seeing things like that.
I thought you were going to reference it throughout the trailer for the last season. They always put Lando without Daniel.
Oh,
obviously he was
Even-
had COVID
Yeah,
at
he
that
had
time.
COVID.
Even the imagery that just came out this week, it still does not. I was like, Photoshop.
Yeah, put him in there.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Something.
One race fine, but like
Yeah.
every race,
The
I'm like,
whole
where is
season.
he? Like, why isn't he here?
I know.
Oh
That's
man.
right. Well, I think last question before we get into Q2,
Yeah.
would be specifically you mentioned, you're obviously creating content at such a high velocity. I am curious, do you have time then to also personally post? Like, or do you feel drained by like having to think so much about another brand?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's like the latter of my personal social media takes a sort of a back seat, and you like, it's a rule of thumb for sort of not just for me but for a lot of my like colleagues who I work with, is you make sure that the professional accounts are looked after first, you make sure your brand is looked after, and then you look after sort of your own one. So it sometimes I'll get home from a track on a Friday and there'll be something that I'll want to post, and it might just be like a story of like, I did a track run today and that was my track run.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's after the weekend is finished, or if I went through a phase for a bit of wanting to have a post and a stories highlight for every race that I was trackside.
Yeah.
And then you'd get behind on a race and then it's the next one, but you want it to be in order, so then you've got this backlog of content to go through, and it just becomes a bit,
especially on those back-to-back where there's no break.
Exactly.
And now there's more and more races happening.
Three, right? Isn't
yeah,
there
there's
one
like
with 3 weekends in a row.
3 back-to-back.
There's quite a few
ridiculous.
triple headers. It's just
exciting.
At any point, is it like too much social media? Sorry, I did say this is the last one. My bad. I
That's
lie
okay.
a lot. Yeah. But at any point, is it just like I need to get off? Like this is way too much social media that I'm like thinking about or consuming? Because you did mention like
I mean,
like having that mode.
Yeah, I kind of try and put in a few, I guess, boundaries before it gets to that point. So I don't have this anymore because now it's become a habit that I'm a bit better at doing it. But when I first wanted to sort of implement these rules, like I've got an iPhone and it has, obviously those time limit lockouts. So it would tell me when I'd been on an app for too long and it would lock me out. And then I had to, every now and then I would have to override that. But I was like, I've been on the app because I've been posting on brand accounts, and now I want to look on my personal account. But, I'll try and, there's certain apps that I won't go on as much because they will feel like work because I'm constantly being served content about sort of F1 and motorsport. But then there'll be other apps where it's kind of like I've curated the feed to be as little about motorsport as possible. So I kind of can, delve into that and just have a bit of escapism.
Dog content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just so many dog movies.
I was just going to ask, what does that look like? What is the explore page? Is it dogs? Is it design?
Yeah.
It
changes.
It changes.
on TikTok, it's so like I can tell as well after a race weekend if I've not been scrolling TikTok because the algorithm is so quick there that it gets really confused and it just serves me everything of like, you've not been here. Here's stuff.
Everything.
And I'm like, no. And like I'll spend like half an hour purposely like recreating my feed of like not interested. Like this. Go on to like my following page and be like, yes, more. And then it comes back and I'm like, now it's back.
Back to normal.
I only found the Discover feature like maybe 8 months ago or something, and I looked at it and I found only like One Direction, Bieber, and Timothy Chalamet content.
Wow.
I'm like, what? It's like what?
It's like, how many of those died?
What are you telling me here, Instagram? Like, I don't know.
You are a preteen.
I am still a believer.
Yes.
I am still a believer.
Yes.
She made it through Q1, guys.
Oh,
there we go.
What, was that a purple sector?
I think it was
I
purple.
think so.
I felt pretty good about it.
I like how it's starting.
Getting you into Q2, though, this is where obviously we want to dive a little bit deeper into you as a professional. I mean, taking you back to Adelaide. You studied in college there. What did you study?
I did a Bachelor of Commerce and then I did a postgrad year immediately afterwards, also in commerce, but in marketing. And
when you came into college, like, what were you like? What were you thinking? Like, were you like, oh, I want to do a career in social media? Or were you like, oh, maybe there's some backup options as well that I'm considering?
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Commerce in Australia is kind of like the the degree that you apply for when you
Yeah.
don't really know what
Yeah.
you want to do, because it's like the equivalent of it in the UK, I think, is just a BBA, like a Bachelor of Business
yeah.
Administration.
Mhm.
So it's really broad, and the first sort of year and a half, you have every single subject of every aspect of business. So
Yeah.
from, I think, not even until sort of halfway through your second year do you get to do a marketing subject for the
Oh,
first
wow.
time. So it really starts off very kind of like finance and economics focused,
Yeah.
and you do subjects like commercial law, not so you're going to move into law,
Totally.
but just so you understand kind of
Mhm.
like
The foundations.
Yeah.
exactly. So when I went into that, I was just like I said, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. When I was in school, the first thing that I sort of set my mind career-wise on was architecture. And then I went and did work experience with an architect. And I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's like, nope.
I was like, this is absolutely not for me.
Was it boring or like why? Like,
I mean, I still love architecture and I
Yeah.
love design.
Yeah.
But maybe it was just the wrong firm that I went into, because it was like sort of designing just like a block of like commercial house, not commercial
that
house.
takes
Commercial houses doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Just a block of like houses.
Residential.
Yeah,
Yeah,
residential,
residential,
like
yeah,
just townhouses. And it was didn't really have any feeling. And it was
No.
very like a modern, just concrete and whatnot. And I was
takes the
like,
creativity out.
yeah. And I was like, no.
Depends. Subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kevin loves houses.
Yeah.
She loves houses.
I if you looked at my
She likes a
feed,
square
Yeah.
house, you know?
no.
absolutely love it, but not something that I want to do. Don't want to spend my time on CAD every day. So yeah, I mean, that was, about year 10, so a couple of years before I had to sort of go into uni. But
Mhm.
like I said, I went into this sort of general business degree and still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Social media was far less of a thing then. Like I know Instagram wasn't even invented when which is maybe showing my age a little bit as well.
Don't worry.
But yeah, I mean, I have to say, like my first year of uni, I was really just not lost, but
Yeah.
I just I was like, I'll do this and I'm sure I'll find something that I like out of it. And my first year wasn't fantastic, but by the time I got to second year, halfway through my second year, we got to do our first marketing subject, which was just literally introduction to marketing.
Yeah.
And I found it really interesting. So then as you go on in the degree, you get to choose more and more electives to sort of obviously, choose a major, and you can choose sort of an unofficial minor that went with it. And I just found that aspect of it really interesting. So I did every marketing subject that I could. I did, all the consumer behavior subjects, which are all kind of like based around, all marketing theories sort of start as psychology theories, and then it kind of evolves from there. Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of, that's sort of where it started from. It wasn't a social media thing.
And when did the blog start then?
That started in my post-grad year.
Post-grad year. And what was the kind of impetus for that? Like, why did you start it? How did you come up with the idea?
So I, at that stage, already really liked Formula One. It was actually, so in my undergrad, my boyfriend at the time, like we were dating from sort of the age of like around 15 to 21. So like we grew up together.
Yeah.
And he was very much into F1, and he was like, obviously being in Australia, the races are at nighttime. So he was always like, Alex, like stay up with me and watch a race. And I was like, I have AM lectures, I'm going to bed. I'm really tired. So I never really watched it. And then like we broke up very amicably, like we're still close friends now. But after this point, I sort of had to realize, or I had to figure out like what do I, I was really discovering myself, but I had to sort of figure out, what do I like because I like it, and what do I like or what do I enjoy because it was part of my relationship. And there were a couple of things that kind of stuck out to me as like, oh no, you like this because it's you. One of which was Top Gear, and I was like, that's cool.
That's
amazing. And I was like, that's an interesting insight. I thought that was just part of my relationship, but like, no, I really like Top Gear. And then the other thing was, despite all the sort of previous years of me saying to James, like, no, I'm just going to go to bed, like I had started watching it. And in that sort of first year that we weren't together, so 2012, I was like watching all the races on my own, and I was like, actually, no, I really like this. And it kind of went from there. And then the second half of 2012, I finished my uni, I finished my undergrad in Singapore. And part of the reason I chose that was I was choosing between a university in Finland, a university in California, or a university in Singapore. And a legitimate part of my decision process was, well, I'll be there in Singapore, so I can afford the better tickets because I'm already there. So I went to Singapore for like to finish uni, and I went to the race, and by around that time I was already thinking about doing postgrad. I knew that if I had the grades, if I finished the grades with the grades from undergrad, to get into it, I wanted to do it. I knew at that stage I wanted to work in Formula One somehow, but I just wasn't sure how I was going to do that. I thought about maybe going down sort of like a journalistic perspective, even though I hadn't done sort of journalism or media at uni. But I was trying to sort of figure out like, how do I do this? Like, what's my niche going to be? Like, how am I going to make it happen? So it was between sort of like the second half of 2012 until right as the season was starting in 2013. And like I said, like that's why the blog was created, because I thought, well, I'll start off with writing about it, because then maybe if I write enough, then maybe someday someone will pay me to write, or maybe I'll apply for maybe I'll apply for FIA accreditation, and I'll go under under that kind of guise. But then at the same time, I was like, well, I need to promote the blog. So then sort of the social media skills came in around it, and I was like, well, if I'm doing this for myself, maybe I could do it for a brand or a team. So then it kind of sort of diverted a little bit more into sort of that aspect, and it hasn't really stopped.
It's quite the love story.
I mean, it's also the reason why we started our podcast. Was we were spending every Sunday, every Saturday watching qualifying together. When we would choose someone's house and be like, we're meeting up, we will have potluck, and we'll be like, okay, now what more can we do with this? We love this sport so much. Why don't we get in front of these people that are creating amazing content, amazing experiences for people? And that's why we got into the sport too, and we love it.
Great.
I mean, just to give you a little context, Michael, who was also part of this podcast, I'm married to him. And,
spoiler alert.
He's taken, guys.
And so early in our relationship, he would be waking up at all hours, like be out the night before, and then 7 a.m. just on the laptop watching, streaming. And I'm like, why are you watching cars go in circle? He's like, first of all.
The heavy suckers.
The diagonal.
Like, don't you ever say that.
Exactly. So my love story with the sport has also evolved, and it was a slow burn, but it's an exciting one.
The Australian Grand Prix is always fun for us because
it's like nighttime.
4 a.m., right?
For us.
Yeah, because we're from Canada. East Coast.
And I remember the last one we did, we just stayed up the whole night.
Where we went for dinner.
I think I ended up too drunk. I don't remember who won.
It was quite an all-nighter.
I don't remember who won.
Let's just say that.
See, it's funny you say that, because when I was still in Australia, it was always the Canadian Grand Prix. That was 4 a.m. for me. And I remember doing that exact thing while I was still writing. The last year that I was in Australia doing the blog, I remember writing the blog, but I worked until like 9 p.m. The night before the race, and worked 9 p.m. until the night before the race. Stayed up to do the race. It was when as well, like, I mean, I was so delusionally tired, but it was when Daniel Ricciardo had his first win, and obviously being Australian.
Oh my goodness.
And I was so emotional, I'm just like crying. I didn't realize I felt this deeply about Daniel Ricciardo, but maybe I think it was just the anthem. I mean, obviously, like, I'm a Ricciardo fan, but I was still like, this really took me by surprise here. But, he won the race, and I did the blog post, and then had like a couple of hours sleep, and then went to work the next morning at like 9 a.m. and was
That's
like,
commitment.
I was just so tired.
It was worth it though.
We got to win. Worth it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a national holiday at that point.
It really should have been. I could have used the sleep.
A lot of people got their first win in Canada. Lewis did too.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's crazy.
Canada's
go Canada.
I'm predicting it right now. I'm thinking Logan Sargent first win.
Oh, wow.
Canada. One day. I'm a
Oscar
big fan of
Logan.
Logan. I'm a big fan of
Strong.
Logan.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone here likes Logan, but
No,
no, Bevan.
No.
Weren't you telling me before you didn't like? I'm kidding.
Come on.
Let's not get me canceled.
But in terms of the career path, then I mean, it seemed like okay, blog is great. You're still doing it part time though. And then, what were you doing full time at that time? Like, where did you have to go to work? Sorry, the agency still or
no? So while I was still in Australia, while you're doing your postgrad year, they encourage you to work at the uni. So you teach classes, teach undergrad classes.
Oh yes.
So at that stage, so 2013, I was doing that and I was writing the blog. 2014, I was still teaching some undergrad classes because I enjoyed it, and also it pays really well for a part-time job. And then I was also working in a cafe, and I was working like behind the counter in a beauty salon.
Wow.
Just
Superhero.
like
Unstoppable.
Yeah.
well, at that stage, I'd made the decision of
hustling.
I want to move to the UK. I want to pursue this career, so I need to save money.
Yes.
So I was working as much as I could. I was fortunate; I was still living at home, so like my parents were fantastic, and you know they covered everything for me. And I just saved absolutely everything that I could.
Wow. So when you were going and you were sleep deprived, you were going to teach a class. That is like the greatest teacher I would ever have. By the way, guys,
Classes
just do whatever you want. Like,
just do it.
So I mean, no.
Let's not get her in trouble now, okay?
I did miss a class to go to a race. I had a friend cover for me, and
That's justifiable.
Yeah, like he did my class for me, and then I picked up one of his for him. So we just swapped, but. I could always tell when I was marking exam papers, I could always tell when one of the students were mine because there would be a Formula One analogy in it. And I was like, yes, you 100%. Did well.
You passed. I'm going to look at the rest of your work.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Now, quickly on the female representation in this sport, and like for maybe even for in the social media aspect, but was your path a little bit different to say your male counterpart? I'm
not really sure if it's different based on. I think I've got maybe a fairly unique way in anyway because of just the timing of when I came in and sort of how I came in and obviously made the move across. The other side of the world. I know a lot of my sort of other colleagues up and down the grids, whether they're male or female, they've sort of, a lot of them, if they're from, the UK or Europe, have the same kind of, obviously do something around sort of marketing or social media in uni, and then try and land an internship, something in sport, get experience under your belt, and then sort of come in like a entry level position in a team or in an organization, in an agency, and sort of work your way up from like a social exec to senior social exec to social manager to head of content, head of social, that kind of route. But
I mean, and then across the whole grid, we know that F1 has a lot of traveling throughout the whole calendar year. How did you guys deal with that? That the fact that you have to travel between countries and you have a little amount of break there. Like, how did you guys deal with that?
So, actually, I mean, I can't take credit for this part of it because I've heard it from someone else who works in the sport. But the basic thing of what I've been told to look after is your shed. So it's looking after your sleep, your hydration, your exercise and diet.
Amazing.
So if you look, I mean, the idea is that you look after sort of all four pillars, but if you can hit, 3 of them or even just 2 of them really well, then it's a win. But at the end of the day, it gets to a point where it's just sort of like you sleep when you can, where you can. One thing that I try and do is I'll always try and sort of do a bit of exercise either right before I travel, especially if it's a long haul flight. And then when I arrive, obviously not when I first, hit the ground running and just, go out for a run or something, but I'll just try and do a little bit of movement either side, just because that's something that for me, like I find it such like a nice, like calming thing to do. So I do that even when I'm not traveling. And then the sleep thing, I mean, the very basic thing is, as soon as you get on the plane, you look at the time zone of where you're going to and you try and sleep in that kind of window. But I mean, I'm in the last year, it's really lucky because Esteban's trainer, Tom, is actually studying his PhD in sleep and jet lag.
Oh,
so
that's a win.
we would, I would literally hit him up for a race and be like, "What's my strategy?
Come on.
When do I need to
my
sleep?
sleep strategy.
An
Sleep strategy.
an actual sleep strategy. And
How do I get in touch with him?
Connect
because I need it.
You said you flew in this morning and you haven't slept yet. So pure vibes and adrenaline.
I tried to
You
really be
upgraded
centered.
too.
I upgraded. I had all the makings of a very good,
promising sleep.
sleep.
I still did it.
Awake the whole time.
See,
maybe I was just excited to meet you.
It's exciting.
I think so.
I mean, I like one thing that I am thankful that I'm quite good at, because I have a few colleagues who just absolutely cannot sleep on flights, regardless if it's night flight or if they're exhausted, they just can't do it. And for me, I'm just like, I get on late night. Like I can just like, it's like a switch I can turn off. So.
I feel like those people would be the most annoying to sit beside.
I've
sat beside people who are like, they're awake the whole flight and they have their TV like lighted up. And you're just like, oh my God, I can't sit beside you. You're too energetic for me right now.
No, I'm still just like, good night.
Oh, that's a great skill. I'm trying to hone in on that.
It's
New Year's resolution.
Just become like so overly tired that that's just what happens.
Do you optimize a lot of your life though? Do you like still even to date like try as much as possible to balance, everything and really make a concerted effort to that? That's awesome.
It's kind of funny because sometimes it becomes a bit of a competitive thing. So like Jack, my other half, is also obviously involved in motorsport, and he obviously like it's his job to be as optimal as possible because he is an athlete.
Of course.
And I'll be there and be like, I also want to be an athlete. I'm not an athlete, but I want to do it too. So I'll one thing that I always make sure I do as much as I can is prioritize sleep, because it's just for every aspect of your life, it's just so important. One thing I'm terrible at, despite having already had like so many sips of water today, one thing I'm terrible at is staying hydrated to like the point where, colleagues of mine used to literally like put a glass down and be like, drink it. So
you move it.
But I'll create like sort of one thing I do at work is I create like a psychological trick because I drink a lot of coffee. So I'll have, if I have my water bottle on the table, I won't reach for my water bottle. But if I have a coffee mug and I fill it with water, I'll drink. So I kind of like,
so smart.
I trick myself.
I have Post-it notes all around the house
to drink.
Remind you.
But they work.
They work because I look at my desktop and when I'm working, I'm like, oh, drink water. Yeah, of course. Okay. And then I go to the fridge. There's another one. Oh, okay. I guess drink water. Don't get a snack only.
I don't do this anymore. But before, when I think in college, I had an app. I don't remember the name of the app. Henny, you might know this one, but it was a plant app. Where like every time you drank water, you'd give the water to the plant too, like virtually, obviously. And then if your plant died, it meant that like you felt really bad.
You're also buying your water.
I remember that. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that app?
Yeah, I don't know how they would
become a crypto
have monetized.
You get tokens, your plant tokens.
It's I haven't seen that app, but I've seen another one that's similar to it for productivity, and like you planted trees. I don't think real trees, but like you would like it was like sort of gamified in that if you paid, if you focused on one thing for like an hour, you planted 2 trees or something like that.
That's good reward.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, you're a human being, obviously, and you're gonna have days where maybe that thing isn't in balance, right? Like you're not maybe having the best sleep, best food, whatever it is. Like, what do you do in those days? Because I'm always curious, like, I sometimes go online and I see people who are like, oh, I always love waking up in the morning and I'm ready to go and I drink my kombucha or whatever. And it's like, no, that's just not right.
My
like,
10-minute meditation.
Not
every morning is like that.
Everybody has days where they don't want to wake up and get out of bed. And like, I want to know kind of from someone like you who's obviously gone through such a great experience, like, how do you deal with those days where you're like, I don't want to get out of bed and I feel like maybe even I failed at my job and like I don't feel as motivated. How do you get over those days?
Yeah, I mean, I have those days a lot, but one thing that I will try and do, and sometimes it's easier to do it than other days, but I'll just once I've kind of if I'm in that moment, like I'll just be like, okay, I'm in it, feel it, like whatever it is. If I do need a day just to reset. Like I remember there was a race in last season where like we went out on the Sunday night after the race, and not like out big night of party, but it was such a social weekend the entire way through, and it was a back-to-back race weekend. So by the time I got to the other end of it on the Monday, I was just like, you know what, I just need to not do anything today. Like I have a bit of work that I need to do because it was back-to-back. But you know, I just kind of went, okay, this is what I need. I recognize that. I kind of just like embrace it, and then just try to sort of think, I don't feel great today. I know that, but you know, it'll be better
like
tomorrow.
Accepting it,
Acknowledging
it.
Just kind of being like, this is just today, and I'll do the things that I know are going to make me feel better. So like I'll book in for like the race. It was actually the US Grand Prix, so we're still in Austin. So there was a Barry's boot camp that was literally like 200 meters from the hotel. So I was like, I'll book into one tomorrow morning because that's something to, you know, look forward to. And I'll make sure that I, you know, get to bed early tonight, and I'll drink water or tea, and, you know, I'll order something into the hotel that's like really like, you know, wholesome. And I'll just do the things that like kind of like a little hug from the inside, and just like I was meant to go out for, you know, dinner and drinks with, you know, friends of mine, and I just had to say like I'm really sorry. I can't. I can't.
So jammies and Netflix.
Like they're happy. You just have to embrace it, really.
Yeah, that's great. I love the honesty there.
Yeah, that's true. And in terms of, you know, you've had an amazing career, and I know you'll do a lot more great things moving forward. But you know, for people who are trying to enter the space, what is, you know, your advice for them of how, you know, what approach to take? I know it's always constantly changing with F1 and new regulations and new changes and how to get into the sport. What is your recommendation for a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of stayed the same the entire way that I've been going through, because I've had a lot of people ask me this question, or you know, people reach out to me through sort of uni or, you know, on Instagram DMs or whatnot. And the two things that, you know, I had to say to myself the whole way going through, but also that I say to others, is just like remain consistent in what you want to do and be persistent at it. So like if you sort of nail those two things, then everything else is, I mean, there's a lot obviously else that goes into it and that's involved in it. But if you try and nail those two things, that's what really helps. So just be consistent, like constantly kind of like do the little things towards it, because little things, and in anything in life, not just to like, you know, towards what you want to do in a career, but if you're just consistent, everything will add up to it. And then, be persistent. Like don't let a rejection like get you down. Like the amount of teams that I've applied for who've rejected me in the past, agencies that I've applied for, like, you know, I've only been living in the UK for 2 years now, but I've been wanting to like be here in this aspect of it for years prior to that. And I've had so many rejection letters, but I'm just like, no, this is what I want to do. Just be persistent. Just keep going. And then I think as well, just the other aspect of that, and not just for sort of working in sort of social media and content, but, you know, if you're coming in from a engineering background, or if you want to be involved in, you know, sponsorship or whatever the aspect of it is just, you know, it's going to sound really corny to say, but just be like, just, you know, be authentic to yourself, be true to yourself, know your worth, like know that like your seat at the table is valid. You should be in the room, you should be heard, and just sort of make sure. And like I have to tell this to myself all the time of like, no, like I deserve to be here, and my opinion is valid, and like I am, you know, I am the best at what I do in this particular thing. So, you know, just making sure that you sort of remind yourself of those things.
Hey, that's a mic drop for me.
Nice.
I like the opening clip of each video. That's going to be the opening
one.
clip. I love that.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, thank you.
But you know, outside of F1 and your job, what are some cool hobbies you have? That, you know, that give you an escape from all of it.
At the moment, is TikTok a hobby?
It could be.
Yeah.
Listen.
I mean, half your job.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just hit the mic. Darn.
It's I mean, TikTok's a nice little escape, but no, like for me, hobbies have always been like sport and keeping fit. Like I touched on it earlier, but like for me, running is something. At the moment, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship. Going more into the love thing.
Always
the hate. But I had like, I mean, I've always liked running. I've always liked keeping fit. I've always liked weight training. That's kind of something that I always kind of just fall back into, because as well, the way that I would try and train is always in a very social aspect. So like I would try and do park runs on a Saturday morning because there's loads of people involved, and it's always such a nice kind of environment to be in, because you'll run past and there'll be marshals on the side being like, "You're doing great," and I'm like, "Thank you." So are you.
I really needed that.
It's really, really nice. But I've only just sort of started getting back into running. I took almost a full year off of running because I had a running goal in 2021 to run 1,000 kilometers in the year.
Wow.
Which started off really good.
My brain can't quantify that. That's a lot of
It's just
kilometers.
A lot of running.
Yeah.
It's like
What's a marathon?
42.
42.
So that's
how did we even do the math for that?
It's a
That's
lot.
how many marathons? Wow.
It was a lot of running.
Yeah.
And I started the year really well. Like in 2020, my goal was that I wanted to do a half marathon, and then obviously 2020 happened, so everything got cancelled, and I ended up doing sort of the half marathon distance, and I had improved my running a lot in that year. So I was like, you know what, 2021, 1,000K.
Wow.
And I started off really good. I wasn't traveling the first half of the year, so it was a lot easier to kind of do it. And then the second half of the year, I remember by the time I got back from Abu Dhabi, because as well I'd stayed out for the test, to work the test. By the time I got back to the Abu Dhabi, I was like, I'm so behind on this weekend. I need to do 11 kilometers a day to catch up. And Jack and I were having a staycation, and there was a gym where we were staying. And every morning, like we arrived where we were staying, and then went straight into the gym and 11K on the treadmill. And Jack's just there, like, I'm running alongside you because I'm a supportive boyfriend, because he's fantastic. But he's also like, this is my life now. And then like the next morning, and there again, 11K, and it was not slow. Like it was not quick. It was very slow. It was not pretty, but I did it and ticked it off, and I was like, never again.
So you did it.
I managed to do it. Yeah.
Hey, that's ridiculous.
It was actually like, I was really happy on that last run, because like I said, like I mean, I had to leave everything ego wise about running, like outside, because I was just like, in my head I was like, I used to be so quick, and I was I would do sprints, and I absolutely loved it, and I was like, this is the slowest I've ever been, and everything hurts, and I don't want to do this anymore, and would stop start on runs. But the last run that we did was around it was in London, and it was around Hyde Park, and we stopped at a supermarket as we were getting close to the end, because I was like, when I finish, I want a bottle of champagne. And we went and got a tiny bottle of Bollinger. Not sponsored. Please sponsor me. We got a tiny bottle of champagne, of Bollinger. And I mean, number one, I was really smug because they ID'd me. And I was like, here you are. Like at the time,
happily.
I was like, at the time, I'm like, I'm 31. And Jack's just there, like, and I was so smug about it. He's like, don't start. But then it literally like ticked over to the 1,000K mark. Or I think on that day, I only had to do like 8.8K or something like that. But it ticked over. And I gave it like an extra like 100 meters or something just in case. And Jack's like, why are you still running? And I was like, just in case.
Just in case. For all the missed parts, maybe.
Yeah.
Miscalculations.
Just stop, please.
Ticked over, stopped the run, like saw it do, like refreshed on Strava and saw it do like the 1,000K, and then was like, champagne. And just like walking down the street drinking from, I mean, it was a small bottle, but just drinking from the bottle. But then, I took most of last year.
Post-workout shape.
It was great. I mean, it was hydration, and it was, carbs. Like it's everything you need.
Everything you
want.
Yeah, full recovery. I think she could have done another 10 kilometers after
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
Like an energy drink.
So do you have a yearly goal for this year then, or no?
My as in 2022 or 2023?
Oh my God, we're in 2023.
Oh, yes. 2023. Yeah.
2023, yeah.
So 2023... no, I did. I think on Strava, obviously, it encourages you to put in like a distance goal. I think I've just done it as like 200K, but I classify myself now as kind of like a fair weather runner. Like I'll run when the weather's nice or when I want to, and just kind of
So it doesn't take the fun out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's meant to be a nice escape. Like I don't need to. I did the at the end of 2021 it was forcing myself to run, so I was like, I've done that, I've proven to myself that I can do it, and now it's an enjoyment part of it. That's my hobbies.
Quick question on before we wrap up Q2, if you weren't within the digital media space, what other part or job do you think you'd excel at?
Oh, that's a good one.
So I think it's either going to be something to do with still like obviously yes, still like sport related and whatnot, but maybe like physio or something, or like sports psychology, because I think, I mean, obviously I'm interested in both aspects of it. Or one thing that I keep kind of like dabbling in the idea of is like once I'm completely finished with motorsport is to do something in the music industry. But like I'm lucky enough that I have a few friends who sort of are involved in different bands, and they're like, oh, if you want to talk to like our tour manager, if you want to talk to someone, and they can just give you advice of like what it's like to work. Because I mean, I feel like it's gonna be even harder than working in motorsport. I think it would be either one of those two things, either something in like physio or sports psychology, or just something in music.
Would you be a performer or on the other side?
I wish I could be a performer. I was good enough. I think on the other side, maybe like a tour manager or like a venue manager or something like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Hey, I mean, I
we
think
we got to chat.
Swish needs a tour manager.
I've been producing music now like very consistently for the last 5 months, and I don't come from a musical background, but I have found it to be like therapeutic.
Yeah,
like just incredible. Like I let my mind go, and I'm mainly doing EDM, maybe a different genre than what you were considering, but still like
just all aspects of.
Oh, amazing!
Then
but like it's literally in the plane. Like I'm just wearing my speakers, and I'm just I feel free. Like it's my own world.
Yeah.
See, he's one of those people on the plane that has the dashboard smashing it.
I have my beat pad too, and I'm just like, everyone's like, oh my God.
Is this guy okay?
On the plane, you're the guy who's awake.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
He's the one I tried to avoid.
So you ran 1,000 kilometers, but you have not done the rapid fire round yet.
You know, point the opposite.
Point the opposite, you know. But we got to see how you do here.
Okay.
We have a list of questions. We're going to do this, the digital way. And again, keep the, answers as rapid, as fire as possible. And we'll see how Alex does.
I'll try not to go into too much detail. It's a trend for me.
All right. I'll start off. If you had to choose one platform to post forever on, which one would it be?
TikTok. That's easy.
Oh, okay. All right. Next question.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, same. I thought it was going to be like Instagram.
I feel like I've dropped TikTok so many times. It's my escapism one.
Were
you on Musical.ly ever, by the way, before TikTok?
No.
Okay.
I was the person who downloaded it in COVID, being like, "This won't last," and I'm like, "Ha I was wrong. I'm in danger."
So to the listeners, I'm about to show you a photo.
Oh yeah.
We did a little dive into everything about you online, and we found this cool photo that you took. So to the listeners, this is a photo of you with Brad Pitt. So what was going through your moment at that moment?
Yeah. So
I will show it to the camera.
It was during the national anthem of the US Grand Prix. So part of me was like, this is my opportunity if I'm going to do it. I hope I'm not disturbing him. But the way I asked for a picture was I wasn't ever sort of going to go up to him, because also like, he's there doing work bits, and he understands what his sort of obligations are, and I'm in uniform, I need to be professional and whatnot. But so the funny story behind it, of the reason why I wanted a picture, is not because it's Brad Pitt, but the joke in my family is that he looks a lot like my brother.
Oh wow.
There's quite a bit of resemblance in sort of the jawline and their hair color, and actually how it's styled. So I was sort of standing there, and I realized he was right there, and loads of people had sort of gone through and asked him for pictures, and he was, very kindly being like, sure, no problem, sure, no problem. And there was a photographer next to me, and he was like, come on, do it. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, do it now. And I was like, okay. And I sort of went up.
Especially during the national anthem.
Yeah.
That's the moment.
Yeah. Like everyone else was distracted. Do it. I sort of went up. I was like, oh, so sorry. Like, do you mind if I have a picture with you as well? And he went, sure, no problem. I went, oh, thank you so much. It's just, you look a lot like my brother, so my parents would love this, and take the picture. And and he just kind of went, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, thank you. And then sort of like the whole interaction was, maybe like 10, 20 seconds or something.
Oh, nice.
But that's the story behind the Brad Pitt picture.
That's really cool. He's probably like, oh, he's expecting you to say I'm a big fan. Blah, blah, blah.
Is that, you look like my brother. You're my sister.
Like, are we related?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Who's the most interesting person you've ever met at an F1 race weekend?
Ooh. That's actually a really hard one. There's loads of people
other
who
than Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the most interesting. You could say one or two.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint. Like, honestly, it's really hard to pinpoint it. I can't think of just one. At the moment, I can't think of any. Not because like nobody's interesting, just because everyone is sort of It's such an interesting place to be. Well, actually, no. Not the most interesting person. She is fantastic, but I remember one of the people who, when I first met them and was just like, oh my God, like I was fangirling while we were like chatting, is a friend of mine, who she's now a friend of mine, but Ruth Bushcombe, so the head of strategy for Alfa Romeo. Because I was like, you were just
an idol.
I was like, you are amazing. Like she did her like study at Cambridge, and like part of her thesis was setting the DRS zones on the calendar with Charlie Whiting. And I was like, the idea Ruth zones now. I was just like, you are so incredible. And so I mean, she's just one of the most interesting people who I've met.
Cool.
I look forward to meeting her.
Oh, she's amazing.
Could happen.
Who actually, for this one you're gonna need your phone. We did warn Alex a little bit before this, but if you go through your messages, who's the last person that you texted?
Like on WhatsApp?
Either one, text or WhatsApp. Let's do WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, because I don't really use text. It's really boring. Not boring. The last person I messaged is Jack.
Jack, fair enough. Okay, cool.
He's on the sim today. The last thing he sent me was a TikTok of a dog.
Of your dog?
No, we don't have a dog. No.
Are you planning on it?
Maybe.
Manifesting.
Yeah. We really want to get a borzoi.
Oh, that would be cool.
Like, they're just the most ridiculous looking dogs.
Yeah.
But as a lifestyle, I mean, we love big dogs, but lifestyle wise, it's like maybe this is the big dog for us, because they need about an hour's exercise a day, which is very easy to fit in our schedule. And then the rest of it, they've been described as like having the temperament more of a cat. So they kind of just like lay and do their thing.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I really want to borzoi.
You could bring the dog for the 1,000 kilometers.
It's
like, what have I signed up for? This is crazy.
I hate you, Mom.
All right. Next question. What rule change would you ever institute in F1? Like double points on the last race, something that you thought would be so cool to add on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we did double points when I was actually working for the last race, and that was very unpopular. But I remember, I liked the change of it. But again, this is something that I can't take credit for. It's actually something that Ruth has said to me, and I was like, yes, I love this idea. But having to run your reserve driver for at least 2 races in the year, because then, I mean, Ruth will explain this far better than what I did, but it'll then become sort of strategy based of like, oh, well, this driver does really well at this circuit, so we're not going to put our reserve driver in for that race. But, historically, they've not performed at that one. So, I mean, we have to run the reserve driver, so it's just like the
changes.
The whole strategy.
Yeah, there's a whole nother strategy element to sort of play into it. But then as well, like, I mean, we sort of have it at the moment of that you have to run your FP1 reserve driver or a young driver for FP1s. But I was like, no, do the race. This is fantastic. I would
It'd
love
also be
to
cool
see
for like even scouting too, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
You'll see them in true
form.
Race
it's an opportunity of one more than they would have ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, think if Nick didn't have like such a great performance,
like that's such an incredible
change
story.
Your life.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is interesting. Which driver would you trust to drive you around the track blindfolded?
Oh.
Don't say Jack.
I mean, she could. Or and if she didn't, what?
I mean,
you were evil.
He has driven me around the track, but thankfully he's never been blindfolded while doing it. Probably Vettel. Like, I mean, if it's not current, because obviously he's just retired. I think Vettel, just because he's so, I feel like he would be the one who really could. I mean, I've seen a lot of drivers like visualize the track with their eyes closed, and they'll have like the steering wheel, and they'll kind of be going through and be like, yeah, I'm at this turn now, and da-da-da. But I think Vettel actually would be able to do it.
Yeah.
He's always in control.
The experience there, like wisdom, it's unparalleled.
He
bikes.
Like, I just feel like I would trust him more.
He would know.
I trust Vettel.
Well,
He would
actually-
care about keeping you alive.
Exactly. Like he would,
He's
he would be
trusting
like,
eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd push you to the limit, but also like I'm gonna look after your safety.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yes, you can drive me.
Great answer. This actually segues well to the next one, which
Yeah.
is who do you think is the greatest driver of all time? If you had to pick one driver.
Jack?
Yeah, Jack hates it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I think obviously like the easy answer is to say like Schumacher or Senna, because they are like the all-time greats. I think if I had to sort of choose one, I would still say Schumacher, but I think we're really lucky in that like Hamilton is also a greatest of all time. I think you can have maybe more than
More than
one.
one.
Like,
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Generations.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think Verstappen is really close to
Yeah.
becoming
Yeah.
like he's on the path for that. I think
Yeah.
we're going to
yeah.
see a lot from Charles as well, and
Excited for him.
yeah.
Great. Love that.
My next question.
You're like, we're done.
I was mesmerized by
Yeah, yeah.
her answer with
Yeah.
Max, But what's the most over asked question you get?
Other than that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not really an over-asked one. I do quite often get like, how did you get into the sport?
Yeah.
But obviously it's one that like I'm very happy to answer. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a question that I get. I feel like I don't get asked all that many questions all the time. But yeah, maybe that's probably the one that I'll get asked the most
Nice.
is, how did you get into the sport?
Who's next?
What piece of F1 memorabilia would you like to own?
Or
yeah.
currently owned.
Yeah.
Or currently on. Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I do have the 2020 Williams Sakir Grand Prix driver at home, Jack Aiken, which was a TikTok trend.
Yep.
No, but from an actual piece of memorabilia, I have what I consider in my mind like part one of it, because when we hit 1,000 Grand Prix, 1,000 races over 2019, the Chinese Grand Prix, there was some merch that was sort of dropped in collaboration for that, and there was caps, which I have a cap, but there were posters, and I think it was that race that they did F1 did a collaboration with Babe, a Bathing Ape.
Oh, okay.
And there were some really cool like jackets for the 1,000th Grand Prix.
Oh,
and I was like, I really want that, because I have a jacket from the 500th Grand Prix, which happens to be the Australian Grand Prix from 1990, which is the year that I was born.
And you have it.
I have it.
Yeah,
I brought it.
Yeah.
I like picked it out of my.
Wow.
So it's like super old
So
school.
cool.
Oh my god.
That is so
Look at that.
And on the
retro
back-
and
The back, yeah.
The
like
back
chic.
is like,
I love it.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, look at the cars. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so
Oh man.
So I was like, I have the 500th. I really want
Yeah.
the 1,000th, and also because, I mean, I was born at this point, so like I didn't know what Formula One was, but I thought it's something that I want to get because it's quite nice. Because I'm like, well, now I work in the sport, and I was there for that race, so like I want it.
Yeah.
yeah. If anyone has it, give it to me. I'll buy it.
Next question: most embarrassing moment you've had at an F1 weekend, if you could name one.
I've had a few.
Okay, more than one, please.
Yeah.
Lovely,
I want
lovely.
the most
Yeah.
embarrassing. Spill the tea.
Yeah, all of it.
All the fun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one race that I was working at when I was still at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and it was the Thursday pit lane walk, and my parents were there, and it was really nice because it was the first time that they were seeing me like in a working environment, and obviously like I'd left Australia to pursue this career, and I was doing it, and I was like, yeah, and my parents were there, and I was in the pit lane outside the Haas garage because I was waiting also to we had a sort of a fan meet and greet or garage tour that was happening, so I was waiting sort of to capture that side of it. But yeah, my parents were in the pit lane, and they were there, and they were sort of it was like when you see sort of a dog do something cute, they were like, stand there and like let me take pictures, and they were like, come on, just Alex, just put, and I was like,
Oh no.
Yeah.
and like all of the like Haas mechanics are behind me, like, oh, look at this girl, like her parents are like making a fool of her, and I was like, oh my god. And then
I don't know them.
Yeah, I was like, who are they?
They really want my autograph as well.
Yeah, I was like, I don't resemble them at all. And like it was like I was so happy that they were there, but I was also like, I really need to be like professional right now. And then I had to sort of walk around to the other side of the garage, and then 2 minutes later, all those same mechanics saw me in the garage, but in a professional perspective, and I had to be like, I have authority.
That was my twin sister.
And then and then another time we were filming something sort of POV style. So I had a GoPro bite mount and had to sort of walk through the paddock holding this piece of memorabilia that Daniel Ricciardo was going to sign. And I had to sort of go up to him and he doesn't know who I am. And I had to go up to him and be like, who's showing it? And he just looked at me and went, there's something in your teeth. The GoPro mount. I was like, then like I had a few people messaging me being like, I just heard from so-and-so that like you were walking around with a GoPro in your mouth. And so for a couple of races, my nickname was like GoPro Mouth or something.
GoPro Mouth.
So I was just like,
we found the title of our podcast. GoPro Mouth.
Yeah. So I mean,
find a helmet to put.
It was a very last minute thing of like. This is now why we asked. Does anybody have a chest mount for a GoPro? So I had to do the bite mount. It was pretty embarrassing.
So right after this, we're gonna get you to do it.
A reincarnation of it.
Yeah. Just sign everything.
Eddie, what you got?
Okay, so if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To speak every language. Yeah,
That's
I've been asked that
That's a
question
good
before, and it's always something. Just because it's such a cool ability, but to be able to like speak every language and understand every language and just be like, aha, I am a polyglot.
You could be in like elevators with people and be like, they're talking shit about me. And I know.
It would like that would be the best. I always wish that when I was living in the UAE that I like learnt Arabic, but just didn't tell anyone. And then when I would leave, just like give this little speech in Arabic and have my colleagues be like, what? But yeah, I would love to be able to speak every language.
That's a neat one. I haven't really thought about one.
Yeah.
I might change mine now.
What's yours?
To travel back in time, but have a limited number of that ability. So I can't go back to every event, but I can relive good special moments.
Yeah. So like go back, but like you can't interfere with it, but you just go back and
just relive.
That's such a good one.
I would relive our wedding. Like, special moments.
Yeah.
The time you met me. That was pretty iconic,
That was How did we meet?
I actually don't remember. We need to relive it.
I think it was at my wedding.
No, Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. That was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, that was
I would relive any time. I've never been, but it looks amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So I might change it to languages now.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. What celebrity or other athlete would be a good fit, you think, for F1?
As in, as a driver?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
I think maybe triathletes, because they're quite like well-rounded athletes.
Yeah.
So, and as well, like racing on a bike, I think that's terrifying because, you come off of a bike and you get road rash and it's horrible.
Oh, geez.
So I feel like they would have the right amount of like fearlessness.
Yeah.
And, they know their racing lines and whatnot.
That's
so I think you would be able to kind of translate a bit of that over into driving.
She was going to say Tom Cruise.
Yeah, same. I was actually like Tom Cruise. It's going to be Tom Cruise.
Because he does look a lot like Checo.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing a side by side.
Yeah, Checo. Tom Cruise would play Checo, or Checo will play Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right.
We're manifesting this from both.
You're writing an autobiography on your life. I actually got this from a Bollywood TV show. Which of these? Yeah, shout out to Coffee with Kern. But anyways, which of these titles resonates best with you? The Daredevil, the Dream Catcher, the Free Spirit, the Hardest Worker. Or GoPro Mouth.
GoPro Mouth.
I did add that in.
A tailbone behind the lens. Maybe Dreamcatcher.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last question.
Wrapping it up.
Oh, wow.
This is just an easy prediction for this upcoming season. Who do you think is going to get, the Drivers' Championship and Constructors? Who are you going with?
It's always hard to say at this point in the season, but because we haven't had like a huge regulation change between sort of last season and this season. I think you know, Red Bull and Max are still going to be sort of just as strong, but I've got a bit of like I'm waiting to see what Ferrari have, because I think they're going to be a bit more of a dark horse. Like it was really close last season between sort of Max and Charles for quite a while, and I think it's going to be closer. So I think Charles could give him a run for his money. Yeah.
He's so happy he's a Red Bull
fan.
He's like, yes.
I'm excited for Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to see that battle. I don't want Max just to win.
A title fight's always fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it's going to be entertaining.
Proper title. That's what people I think like 2021 so much.
Yeah.
Right? Like
so
it just felt
to the grind.
So close every race. You didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah.
And like even the first turn, you didn't even know who was going to get out.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been on the edge of my seat. Like that was a moment where I would relive.
Yeah.
Maybe
not. What?
Maybe if you were there and you saw it with your eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the lead up to it was pretty incredible.
That was
absolutely
amazing.
Yeah. That I think sums up very well, in my opinion, a pretty awesome episode with Alex.
It was such a good
Thank you so
conversation.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Alex, we do ask every guest one final question before they end off, you know, to start you out, you know, kind of answer 30 seconds, sum up your career, you know, to end off, how do you want to be remembered in 30 seconds? We would love that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think I've never been asked this question, but I have thought about it in sort of a slightly different aspect of like from a professional perspective, I just want to be remembered as like one of the best of what I did. Like I want to always be sort of learning and bettering myself in that regard, that if someone were to sort of say my name in a professional context and said, oh, like we've got Alex working on this project, they would say, oh yeah, okay, that would be great. We're good. Like that's fine. That's kind of it. I just want to be remembered as that.
Perfect. And where can people find you on socials if they wanted to check out your journey, follow you, stay connected?
So all of my social is just at Alabooth.
That's fantastic.
We'll make sure to link that into the show notes. And
it is a made up word. So.
I was actually gonna wonder, is that was that the blog title as well or no?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the blog title.
There's every now and then someone will get what the word is, and it's usually when I have to like give my full name for like bank details or like a form or something, because when I was trying to create the name of the blog, I wanted something that was a bit more unique, and like we touched on it at the start, but I was like I want something that I can just tag and they'll only see that. So if I make up a word, so it's actually the first two letters of all four of my names, and it made a semi pronounceable word, and I was like, that's it, that is my alter ego for the rest of the time.
If you don't mind me asking, what are your other names?
So my full name is Alexander Elizabeth Burnett Thomson.
I wasn't given any middle names. Do you guys have middle names?
Yeah. That's our dad's
name. Your dad's name.
Yeah. So we have the same middle name.
Yeah.
What is
Worku.
Oh, we're siblings.
Oh, we're siblings.
I got that part. But I was like, okay.
They said it at the same time. And she was like, wait, what?
Echoes.
Context. Siblings.
I see the resemblance.
Great. Well, thank you again, Alex, for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
And guys, if you want to check out more episodes, we do have them coming out every week or two. Feel free to go and check tracklimitspod.com and give us a follow on our socials. We will see you at the next episode.
Amazing.
Awesome.